Bobby Karalla, ALL City Dallas, joining us now here on The Fan. And a good afternoon, sir. How the heck you doing?
I'm filled with dread, anxiety, maybe even a little bit of fear. How about y'all?
Yeah, I was going to tell you, this is usually about the point that I wake up in the nightmare right before it hits its apex of horror.
We'll see. That dude is about to be on the floor in 4 or 5 hours. That means we still have 4 or 5 hours to wake up.
That's right, Bobby, and I'll keep my fingers crossed between now and then. Now, a lot's been made about how fired up Luka Doncic is. What do you expect, Luka Magic to do tonight?
Man, I mean, we've seen him in the first quarter of Game 5 against the Wolves last year. He went in and ended their season in about 10 minutes, and he did the same thing in Game 7 against the Suns a few years ago. I mean, I expect him to come out and try and do the same thing tonight. I think he's going to try and go for the heart. I don't think, Luka has any sort of hatred in his heart for Kyrie or any of the players. And normally it's a trash-talking player that kind of, sends Luka into this frenzy. But sometimes it's been fans. And in this case, I think it's going to be maybe the coach or maybe the front office or maybe the owner. I mean, whichever guy is closest to wherever Luka is on the floor is going to get a lot of glares. Going to be the subject of a lot of anger, a lot of aggression, a lot of taunts, a lot of trash talk. And, I mean, I think Luka's going to try and, maybe he'll try and score 77 tonight just to let the Mavs know what they're missing out on.
Yeah, I think a lot of the chatter might also come when he returns back to the AAC. I mean, my gosh, that's going to be a hell of a night, Bobby. But here's a question that I never thought I'd have to ask you. How do you think the Mavericks attempt to guard Luka Doncic tonight?
Dude, I've been thinking about that for the last couple days, and, generally the way the Mavs play against really good players, especially guys who can't pass. Obviously, Luka is an incredible passer, so we'll see if they follow those rules tonight. But generally, if a superstar gets going, the Mavs will double-team him. But Dallas and Jason Kidd know better than anybody in the world that doubling Luka, you're not going to keep him from scoring, and he's also going to get 15 extra assists than if you just guard him one-on-one. And so, maybe they'll mix it up. I think P.J. Washington is going to guard him. I think Najee Marshall will guard him. Max Christie might be too small, but then you got guys like Omax that, are the right size but might be a little too clumsy. Kyrie is really clever, but he's obviously way too small. There's just not really a lot of good options on this team to guard Luka one-on-one. So, I mean, if he gets hot early, you might have to start doubling him. But then all of a sudden you're going to be, he's just going to kick it out to LeBron, and LeBron's going to be, have the ball in his hands playing 4-on-3. So I don't know. I really don't know. I think the Mavs just have to hope that Luka shoots 4 for 17 tonight, and they don't have to make a tough choice. But I really doubt that's going to happen.
Right, Bob. I mean, when you get Luka on defense, they are going to try and do what LaMelo Ball and the Hornets did the other night.
Yeah, go at him. Go at him. Kyrie is going to do everything he can to get Luka one-on-one. Obviously, he's really quick. PJ, I think, could maybe try and hit him with some moves. I mean, Luka is really good with his hands, though. So if you're trying to get too nice with it, he can poke it away. And the Mavs don't necessarily have a lot of guys outside of Kyrie and maybe on his good day Spencer Dinwiddie that can string together a couple dribble moves the way that LaMelo was. But, the Lakers showed over the weekend when they destroyed the Nuggets, they were swarming Nikola Jokic. And part of that was to try and force the ball out of his hands and, keep it to lesser shooters on the team. But also part of that is the Lakers signal to the NBA world, hey, we will take your star out of the game and force other guys to beat us. So I think one way that they could protect Luka tonight is by, if Kyrie's pointing at his man to come set a screen, I think they might just double. Luka might just blitz Kyrie, force that out of his hands, and then force somebody else in the Mavs to beat them. Other teams have done that pretty successfully against Dallas over the last, 6 or 7 games since the trade. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers try it. But, I mean, certainly the Mavs are going to try and make Luka work on defense because, every other team does it, and they know better than anybody what his limitations are.
Bobby, you live with this team, and so I just was going to ask you, when you see players that are coming back and working with the coaches, after shoot around stuff, is that usually an indication? I know in the NFL, when I see players like on the cords and things like that, I could kind of have an idea of maybe when they're going to come back. Do you get any read by what we've seen with some of the injured guys shooting after practice today?
It's certainly not a bad thing that Anthony Davis is able to get out on the floor. I mean, if his health situation, and this is just purely speculation on my part, but if his health situation was trending towards surgery being the only way to make this thing better, I don't think anyone in the world in their right mind would let him anywhere near a floor, even if he's just taking standstill jumpers. But the fact that he's able to get out there and move around at least a little bit is a little cause for hope. But, I mean, he's definitely not sprinting. We're still a week or so away from them being reevaluated, him alongside Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford. Lively has been captured on camera, not having to be in his boot. I mean, that's a pretty good sign. Gafford, he's still a ways from coming back, but, I mean, they just need anybody. Dwight Powell is certainly the closest to coming back of all the big men. Granted, he's the least effective of the four, but he's still someone that's taller than 6'7" that can go out there and play, knows how to play basketball. And he's almost doing full workouts and, not quite going through full contact practice, but the expectation is that he'll be back at, some point pretty soon. I would hope within the next week or so, by the time Moses Brown's 10-day contract expires. So a little bit of the cavalry is on the way, but of course all eyes are on that March 6th date for the reevaluation of those three. If Anthony Davis needs surgery, it's super over. It's fully, completely over. But if he's on the floor right now, I mean, maybe hope remains that we can see him sometime in March, and, they're obviously going to need him as soon as possible.
All the talk has been about how Luka's fired up, but I feel like the Mavs players have come together a lot since the trade. I mean, they were already a good morale group, and Kyrie's a great leader, but how fired up are they with all the attention on this matchup tonight in the association?
I mean, they're probably pretty fired up, but it is this weird situation where, now outside of Dwight Powell, the longest tenured Maverick is Jaden Hardy, who joined the team in 22-23. So there's not a lot of guys on this team that have spent a lot of time with Luka. A lot of the players that are active right now are on the team for the first season, so they barely even know the guy. So I'm not sure how much of this emotional connection they have to him, or even kind of an understanding of what he meant to the fans and to the franchise and everything like that. But, they're certainly aware of the noise. They're certainly aware of how fans are obviously rightfully skeptical of the trade, and, a lot of people believing that the season is kind of over and all of their big men are hurt, and there's no reason to think that this team can make a playoff push. And yet here they are, before the last game against the Warriors, they'd won 5 out of 6. I mean, they were playing really, really well. I think my only concern is hoping that Warriors blowout was not maybe a little bit of the shaking of the confidence. This team needs to believe that with some scrappy fighting and scratching and clawing and all that stuff, that they are capable of winning games. And every time, you get run out of a gym by a team that is better than you, I think it's another little pin in the cushion, and they need that belief, because right now they're not physically capable of overwhelming teams. They can only do it by outworking and outsmarting the other team. And, if they get outskilled and outworked the way they did the other night a lot, then it could get pretty ugly for them.
Bobby Karalla, ALL City Dallas, with us here in the GBag Nation. Do you expect to see Nico Harrison make an appearance tonight?
I think that he will be in the gym. Honestly, I think it would be pretty lame if he wasn't. Now, will he be visible? I don't know. If he's visible, you can bet your life that Luka will find him, And if we see Luka looking into the stands, he's going to be looking right at Nico all night. So I hope that Nico is there. I think it would be, kind of weak if he wasn't, but, maybe he should stay in a suite or maybe in the locker room or something, because, any extra motivation for Luka, we know, is a very, very dangerous thing to do.
I like the idea of Nico Harrison sitting in the stands, and at some point they put him up on the Jumbotron, and Lakers fans just go bananas and give him a standing ovation, round of applause. Thank you, Nico.
Sure.
Ooh, yeah, that is good. I mean, they do like a celebrity who's in the gym kind of thing, during timeouts. They'll show all the celebs. I'm sure there's going to be a lot tonight. They could mix in a shot of him. I think he'd probably get a louder ovation than like Jack Nicholson or any of those other people that show up.
Bobby, I wanted to pick your brain on the video that went viral over the weekend with DeRoe in the Mavs kind of blurring out Luka's face from the videos. I know you did work with the Mavs and creating content and the website before All City, and when we've had Nick Harris on, who worked at DallasCowboys.com, like, I guess this is something that all teams do. Just as fans, maybe we just never noticed it until it was somebody as big as Luka, and it just seemed like he was adding insult to injury.
Yeah, so a little more info on that. It wasn't actually Luka that they blurred out. All of the people that became silhouettes with logos on their faces were Maxi Kleba and Quentin Grimes, which is pretty funny because obviously, I don't think many people are fired up about Maxi or Quentin Grimes, but the fact that they were turned into silhouettes kind of creates a little bit of doubt, and doesn't do a lot to, ease people's anger and emotions and everything. But that video wasn't even made by the Mavs. Now, why it was posted by the Mavs is anybody's guess, but poor DeRoe had to put out a statement about it later that day to saying, like, hey, my team made it, and we were trying to eliminate the distraction of having former players, but, it was a bit of a heavy-handed way to do it. But, yeah, I mean, generally whenever players are traded or change teams, if they leave in free agency or whatever, the teams do have to go back and, update their website, update their Twitter headers and all that stuff to include only players that are currently on the team. Otherwise, you could be fined for tampering. We would get a long list, via email of all the things we can and cannot do around the trade deadline and around the NBA draft and free agency and stuff. And, we had to be pretty mindful of that. But, the timing of that video and the kind of the over-the-top way that it was done certainly, fueled the fire that's still raging in the fan base. What I can say is that the clips that were used, because it was a DeRoe video, you had to get approval from the NBA for all of those clips. And it can take a really long time to get approval from the NBA. And so, instead of just waiting the several weeks or months that they would need to get new clips, they just went ahead and did what they did. Obviously, fans feel a certain way about it, and that is their right. But, just another unfortunate blunder in a long series of ones for the Mavs lately.
Bobby Karalla, All City Dallas. Before we let you go, where was the Luka and Jason Kidd relationship before the trade?
I think it was good. I think it was fine. J. Kidd pretty much keeps things pretty close to the chest. Now, he has over the years, not shied away from criticizing Luka's defense, and kind of the team's approach to the game. And obviously he's not going to single out Luka every single night. So sometimes, they could be perceived as veiled shots toward Luka or something. But I mean, Luka, when asked, always said nice things about J. Kidd, and J. Kidd, when asked, always, for the most part, said nice things about Luka outside of sometimes talking about his commitment to defense. So, I think there was a mutual respect between the two. Were they best friends? I don't know. I don't think that Luka's necessarily trying to be friends with his coach, but that's not a shot at him or anything. I mean, he's a player and J. Kidd is a coach, and there's a 20 or 30-year age gap between the two. I don't think they have a lot in common. So, J. Kidd is a guy that wants things done his way. Luka certainly likes to do things his way, and whenever you get two alphas like that in the room that are pretty cerebral types, there could be a little friction, but I don't think that they disliked each other or anything like that. I mean, I think they were pretty tight-knit and, kind of on the same page as far as a superstar and his coach is concerned.
Trying to make sense of this on a night where the Mavs visit the Lakers, could it be simplified to maybe Nico and Dumont just kind of overestimated how important their principles were and thought they were worth, holding up, even if it meant getting rid of a generational talent? Or have you gained any perspective that allows it to make a little bit more sense as of yet?
The way I view it, man, is, Nico is a guy that's not really from around here. Patrick Dumont is a guy that's not really from around here. And when they suddenly wake up with all the power in the world and lofty ambitions and, maybe a little pressure to win right away, you can kind of forego and forsake the emotional connection that fans feel toward their favorite player and just think, well, I mean, this guy that I like, I think is better than him, so I can sell the fans on that. But, like it or not, there is a very strong emotional connection between fans and their favorite player. Fans in the NBA now routinely will switch allegiances when their favorite player changes teams, and players change teams a lot. There aren't necessarily 10 million Mavs fans in the world. There's a few million Mavs fans, and there's a lot of Luka fans. And I think, if you look at things too rationally, if you think about, things in a basketball sense too much without respecting fan sentiment, the emotional, the romantic connection to the game, then I think it can lead to situations like this. And unfortunately, it's becoming a lot more common in the league. And, fans just continue to lose. It is really sad. But I think that's the only explanation for it. This trade was not really about basketball. It was about what Nico Harrison thinks is right and what Nico Harrison thinks is best. And if he's proven right, cool, I guess. If it turns out that he's wrong, then, again, Mavs fans are the only ones that lose. He's going to have a fine rest of his life, and we're going to watch some pretty bad basketball for a little while. So hopefully he's right, I guess. But, in the meantime, people are still going to feel really strongly about this for a really long time.
Well, best of luck to you, Bob, as you continue this journey to tip off and trying to process this. I can't imagine all the emotions that will be going on there during the game. But best of luck to you and all the Mavs fans out there making the most of it.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.